Today, we're taking a journey into the world of mental health, exploring a book that's been shaking up the industry and sparking intense debate. The book is called America Fooled: The Truth About Antidepressants, Antipsychotics, and How We've Been Deceived by Timothy Scott. And trust me, this is a conversation you won't want to miss. Picture this. It's 2005, and Tom Cruise is on the Today Show with Matt Lauer, not to talk about his latest blockbuster, War of the Worlds, but to ignite a nationwide debate about antidepressants. Cruise boldly claims that depression isn't caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain, and that these drugs are dangerous and mind-altering. The backlash was swift. The American Psychiatric Association's president called Cruise's comments irresponsible, and psychiatrists like Charles Conway and Joseph Coyle defended the chemical imbalance theory, citing genetic influences and environmental factors. But here's the thing. Timothy Scott, a psychology professor, isn't buying it. He's spent his career teaching students how to read and critique research, and he's convinced that most of us, including highly trained physicians, have been fooled by the narrative pushed by the pharmaceutical industry. So, what's the truth? Is depression really a result of a chemical imbalance? Are antidepressants the miracle cure we've been led to believe? Scott argues that the evidence we've been given is deeply flawed, and he's here to set the record straight. Let's start with the chemical imbalance theory. Scott points out that there's no objective test to determine if someone has a chemical imbalance. No blood test, no brain scan, nothing. He argues that the idea that depression, anxiety, or schizophrenia are caused by a chemical imbalance is more marketing than science. Studies have shown that the levels of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine vary widely among individuals, and there's no clear link between these levels and mental health conditions. Scott cites numerous examples to support his argument. For instance, a study by the National Institute of Mental Health found that older generations who didn't have access to antidepressants had much lower rates of major depression than younger generations who do. Women, who are more likely to be prescribed antidepressants, experience higher rates of depression than men. And the suicide rates for children and young people in 1950, before antidepressants, were less than half of what they were in 2000, despite the widespread use of these drugs. Scott draws a parallel between the antidepressant story and the hormone replacement therapy saga. In the 1960s, women were told that menopause was a disease caused by a hormonal imbalance and that estrogen could prevent aging and protect against heart disease. But as more research emerged, it became clear that HRT increased the risk of heart attacks, strokes, and cancer. The parallels are striking. A powerful narrative pushed by the pharmaceutical industry, a lack of rigorous research, and devastating consequences for millions of women. Scott is highly critical of the pharmaceutical industry's role in promoting the chemical imbalance theory. He argues that drug companies have manipulated research, used deceptive marketing tactics, and influenced medical journals and professional organizations to promote their products. He cites examples of drug companies sponsoring conferences, funding research, and even ghostwriting articles to create the illusion of scientific consensus. One of the most shocking revelations is the story of Dr. Robert A. Wilson, a gynecologist who wrote the best-selling book Feminine Forever, promoting the use of estrogen. Scott reveals that Wilson had undisclosed financial ties to drug companies and that his book was part of a massive marketing campaign. This raises serious questions about the credibility of the research and the motivations behind the promotion of these drugs. Scott also delves into the dangers of antidepressants, highlighting the lack of long-term studies and the potential for serious side effects. He cites research showing that antidepressants can increase the risk of suicide, especially in children and young adults. He also discusses the blunting effect, where antidepressants can numb emotions and lead to apathy and loss of motivation. In contrast to the chemical imbalance theory, Scott proposes the Continuum Model of mental health. This model suggests that mental health exists on a spectrum, and that our emotional well-being is influenced by a variety of factors, including our choices, behaviors, and environment. Scott argues that we can take control of our mental health by making positive choices, such as getting enough sleep, avoiding alcohol and drugs, and focusing on meaningful activities. One of the key components of the Continuum Model is the importance of values. Scott believes that having a strong value system is crucial for good mental health. He argues that focusing on loving and encouraging others, rather than on ourselves, can lead to greater happiness and fulfillment. He cites the example of Dale Carnegie's principles for making friends and influencing people, which emphasize focusing on others rather than on oneself. Scott also emphasizes the importance of having a clear purpose in life. He argues that a lack of meaning and purpose is a major threat to mental health, and that having a sense of direction and a reason for living can provide resilience in the face of adversity. He cites the example of Viktor Frankl, a Jewish psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps and wrote about the power of finding meaning in suffering. In conclusion, Scott's message is clear. We've been fooled by the chemical imbalance theory and the pharmaceutical industry's marketing machine. The truth is that antidepressants are not the miracle cure they're made out to be, and there are better, more holistic approaches to achieving good mental health. Scott's Continuum Model offers a hopeful alternative, empowering individuals to take control of their mental health and make choices that promote well-being. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of America Fooled. I hope this conversation has challenged your assumptions and inspired you to think critically about the information you're given. Remember, knowledge is power, and by educating ourselves, we can make informed decisions about our mental health and well-being. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to the BrightLearn podcast for more thought-provoking content. Until next time, take care and stay curious.
Visit BrightLearn.ai for more fascinating videos like this one, and naturalnews.com for full editorial coverage and breaking news on critical stories that keep you informed and aware of what's really going on.